First of all, I wanted to thank God that He opened this day with a cloud cover. It's sort of like this is a perfect timing for that. So, Abba, we just want to thank you that you are with us today and that you are allowing us to look at your temple and to glorify you and to recognize who you are in us. In Yeshua's name. So this portion is about Solomon's temple. So it's really parallel to what we're doing in the Torah portion. In 2 Samuel, there is David was given this. I didn't have this on the slide, where it says, when your life is complete and you go to join your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring, and I will fortify his kingdom. He will build a temple dedicated to my name, and I will make the throne of his kingdom last forever. I'll never remove my gracious love from him. Your dynasty and your kingdom will remain forever in my presence. Your throne will be secure forever. I think that's such an incredible promise that he was given to David. So he longed to build a temple. He wanted a dwelling place for Yahweh, but he had to pass that honor on to his son Solomon because he had blood on his hands, and God was like, no, you don't get to do that. There is another place in Scripture where the prophet Nathan gives him very, very detailed instructions on how to build that temple that you guys could go ahead and look at. It's in 1 Chronicles 28. So some say Solomon was only 12 when he became king. Other things say that he was 20. But regardless of that, he was somewhere. He built the temple 4 years after he took over as the reigning king. So he was somewhere between 16 and 25 probably when he started that. And this is a huge undertaking. That's a really young person to be doing that. So it took 7 years to complete and thousands of workers to complete. And I think it's interesting that it took 7 years, the number of spiritual completion. Okay. It was also dedicated in the 12th year in Solomon's rule, which is, again, another holy number, having the 12 tribes. Nothing is by accident. David had been given detailed instruction from God. This is again in 1 Chronicles 28, 11 through 21, on how the temple was to be built. We know that God gave Moses detailed instructions so that every little piece was exactly right. He gifted Bezalel and Aholiab with wisdom on knowing how to do what was needed. And it's no coincidence that Solomon was also gifted and known as the king that was filled with wisdom. So I think of knowledge as information that we gain. We study, we read books, we get some experience, but wisdom is knowing what to do with that knowledge. It's a much deeper thing. It's the ability to discern or judge what's true, what's right, what's lasting. We use our brains to obtain knowledge, but wisdom is a gift that comes from God. His presence in us to be able to live our lives in a way that pleases him. So the tabernacle was a temporary building made of physical materials. Solomon's temple was also a building, a complex made of physical materials. It was like twice the size of the tabernacle. But it's much like knowledge. Yet once they were put together in the physical, both were filled with truth, with righteousness, and with what is everlasting by the presence of Yahweh, the one true judge. And once he entered the tabernacle, once Yahweh entered the tabernacle and Solomon's temple, everything had to stop because of his presence. He filled the Holy of Holies, and it was so overwhelming, Moshe couldn't enter, and the priests fell forward. They also couldn't, nobody could do anything. Just like at Mount Sinai when he appeared. Everything stops because of the presence of the Lord. Did you move on? Yeah. Okay. Both the tabernacle and the temple were built with extensive riches, gold, silver, precious jewels, wool, linen that was in colors that were hard to get at that time. So one article I saw that was from 2021 said the gold would be valued at, I think it's billions, 194 billion, and the silver 22 billion. I'm not sure what those numbers are, but that's a huge amount of gold and silver. So the value of the tabernacle would have been multiple millions. Solomon's temple had to have been a really magnificent sight. I think most of us would just be in awe by looking at the architecture. But then Yahweh makes his presence known. Is it any wonder that they couldn't remain standing? Both the tabernacle and the temple were completed and dedicated during holy days. The tabernacle was on the beginning of Aviv, with the season of Passover, so it was dedicated on the first day of the first month of the second year. Solomon's temple was dedicated in the month of Ethanim, and I know that seems an unusual. We call it Tishrei now, but there are a few months in the Bible that are named as an original name, and Ethanim is one of them, which is the 7th month during Sukkot. So it's a time of joyous celebration, and I think as I was doing this, I was imagining what it would be like to be there, and you're seeing the smoke, the elaborate buildings, and the sun shining on all that gold, the courtyards, the priests, the incense smell. So it's no wonder that Solomon chose Sukkot to bless the temple. So it was a time that everyone would be there to witness this splendor. And everyone could show honor to God with song and dance and the knowledge that God's promises given to David about Solomon and the eternity of it being fulfilled. So Solomon had followed through with his natural father's desire. He had done what God instructed. David cherished the dream of building the temple for God, even if he didn't get to do it, and even if we have dreams that God gives us and we cherish them. It's important to hold on to those, because if it's God's will, even if we're not the ones that fulfill it, someone will, and it will glorify him. As 1 Kings continues, Solomon continues to pray as he dedicates the temple. And it's a time of not only dedicating a building complex, it's also a time of dedicating the people and a time of renewing the covenant to declare that Yahweh is their God and they are his people. So an interesting parallel with the tabernacle, Solomon's temple, and Herod's temple is that all three of these were built with the help of outsiders, unbelievers. When the Hebrews left Egypt, it was a mixed multitude of peoples. So they were there helping to build that tabernacle. Solomon engaged the help of King Hiram of Tyre, who had been a friend to David, but he was a pagan, and yes, he did give homage to God with this, but he was a pagan, and he supplied cypress and redwood. And Herod worked with Cyrus II of Persia, also a pagan, and there were other foreign kings who supported that building too. So Herod's temple required 18,000 workers and 1,000 priests to build it. It's so fitting that non-believers were part of the building process. So Isaiah 56:7 gives this prophecy. Even those I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be acceptable on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all the peoples. And so today there's just a little bit of the retaining wall left over from when Herod's temple was there. But it's a place that people from all over the world come and stick their little notes in the cracks. But people that are even of different faiths are still bringing homage to our God. This last part I wanted to share is part of a presentation that my friend Brad Scott did on the tabernacle. And I don't know if many of you are familiar with him, but he was somebody early on in this walk that taught a lot of us, and he has been here to this congregation as well. Sadly, he passed away about 1.5 years ago, but it pertains to the temple as well. The design of the tabernacle and the temple and the instruments aren't just for show. They apply to the tabernacles of God that we as his people are today. and this is his pattern. Yahweh has shown us the way of salvation and his order by means of the tabernacle. The way of salvation is pictured by 7 pieces of furniture, all placed in a specific order as one approaches the presence of Yahweh. There are 2 items in the court, the shadow of the physical body. These are the brazen altar, the place of whole sacrifice, and the laver, the washing of the water of the word to cleanse your walk. Then we enter the holy place and see 3 details. The holy place symbolizes our minds and so contains 2 pictures of Torah, which renews our minds and is the precursor for physical and behavioral transformation. The menorah, the light of the world, and that table of showbread, the life-sustaining bread of life. The last detail before entering the most holy place is the golden altar, the picture of prayer. The final destination contains the Ark of the Testimony and the mercy seat. The Ark, containing the life-giving word of Yahweh, is protected and watched over by his enduring mercy. Is this not the process that we go through in order to be delivered from death? It is our court or our body that first receives the words of life. The gospel must be preached, and we must have an ear to hear it. Then our minds assimilate the material, and we make a decision either to trust what we've heard or to reject what we've heard. When our ears have heard and our minds have responded, we ask or pray, and Yahweh always answers with a resounding, I will. Yahweh then places his testimony and his mercy in our hearts, our spirit, and it becomes renewed and sanctified. Now the process of growth takes place in the way Yahweh originally designed the tabernacle, from the inside out. The way of salvation is from the outside in. The way of growth and maturity is from the inside out. If we have the testimony of Yahweh within us, then our minds take their instruction from the word of Yahweh and not the world or any other source. If we don't have his word in us, then our minds must take their instruction from somewhere else. Once the mind has been renewed and transformed, then our bodies must obey. So if I've made up my mind to go swimming, my body can't argue about it. If you truly believe, then you will truly do. If you're not doing, then you are not truly believing. So the temple is important. All those little details that can bog us down, but it's a picture of him and us.